Hello everybody, this is Craig Evans of Autism Hangout, and thank you for tuning into this special episode of Ask Dr. Tony. Today Dr. Atwood will be addressing the coronavirus, COVID-19, and how we can best deal with the anxiety of these times. Hello Dr. T, thank you for spending some time with us today.
Hi Craig, special times require special consideration, so I just thought I would give some thoughts on anxiety and autism in relation to COVID-19. We're dealing with anxiety, and unfortunately for those with autism, anxiety is contagious. And so as much as we talk about the virus being contagious, so is anxiety. So if people in the family are starting to become anxious, it will affect the person with autism. So we need to be mindful of the fact that our own agitation is likely to be picked up and amplified by the person with autism. Now, one of my concerns is the news reports that are full of doom and gloom, and they refer to the killer virus, and the number of people killed by the virus is rising, yet to reach its peak. And one of the problems is that the person with autism is going to think, killer virus, what on earth's going on here? Whereas typical individuals will be able to put this in perspective, that the media is perhaps making things very dramatic for their own reasons. Now, another factor that can occur in autism, and I was talking to Barb the other day, and she said she has autism, that she feels the pain of the world. So when on the TV there are pictures of people in great distress, then those with autism are very aware of it. You tend to think that a person with autism is in a world of their own. No, they're often very aware of distress in other people. So those are the sorts of things I'm concerned about. Now, we also know that anxiety occurs in 85% of those on the spectrum. Only really 1 in 6 seems to escape fluctuating levels of anxiety. It's a daily issue. Now, one of the characteristics of autism we've been discovering in research and clinical work is a fear of uncertainty in life, not knowing what's going to happen. And of course, we are experiencing uncertain times. So that's going to feed into that component of autism. Now, one of the things we may find is that as the person with autism becomes more anxious, the autistic characteristics will become greater. And some of the behaviors of autism are ways of coping mechanisms for anxiety. So when a person is more anxious, they're going to have greater sensory sensitivity. That will become greater. There's likely to be increased social withdrawal because it's stressful and anxiety creating. There's going to be a greater imposition of routines and rituals to try and relieve the anxiety, but also an increased engagement in the special interest as a thought blocker. So autism is going to increase. Now, it also means that various forms of anxiety will increase. We have what's called generalized anxiety disorder. That is a natural worry, and that's going to be greater. So there'll be worry about other things. But there will also be social anxiety, phobias, separation anxiety is going to be important. But unfortunately, also obsessive compulsive disorder, especially cleaning. And now germs, viruses is on the news all the time. So your private worry is now very public and is being fueled by the media. And the person will be worried, how often should I clean things, wipe things, and so on. So there's likely to be an increase in anxiety in general. Now, the next stage is what to do when there's almost like a panic attack. The person is chaotic, spiraling, turbocharged out of control. Some advice for parents. First of all, stay calm as much as you can, because if you become distressed by your son or daughter's anxiety, it's going to add fuel to the fire. So stay calm. The next one is validate the feelings. It's basically, I can see you're really upset. This is very distressing for you. I can see that. I acknowledge it. So it needs to be affirmation and validation that the person is upset. Now, what you can do is explain that the intense anxiety that's there at that moment will go, and then you're going to do something enjoyable together. But it is a temporary intensity in anxiety. Now, another thing, very important, please do not ask the child why they are so distressed, because they are in a state of agitation, anxiety, and so on. And if you're not careful, if you say, what's the matter? What is it you're worried about? You're then asking them to go back in time to give a sequential, coherent, and eloquent description of the nature of their problems. They can't do that. It's going to make them more agitated. What they need is to move out of it. So please try not to ask, what are you upset about in that situation? You may need to find out, but later on when they're calm. It's also in that extreme distress. If the child is being unreasonable, then sorry, reason won't work. You've got to wait. You've got to wait till the mind is reasonable for you to use reason. Now, what you might do is consider a pleasurable activity, a special interest as a thought blocker to try and disengage the mind from that high level of anxiety. And also, please, praise and encourage with gratitude, being calmer. Well done, right direction, you're calming down, that's lovely. Let's focus on that if we can. Now, what's going to be very important as an antidote to anxiety is information, and I am delighted. I'm a great fan of Carol Gray. She's a wonderful lady, and she's developed social stories that can be used not just for social situations, but also for emotions too. Carol's been working hard on this with her colleague, Siobhan Timmins. And you can obtain from the internet some illustrated social stories that I highly recommend. Carol has My Story About Pandemics and Coronavirus. Please do check it out on the internet. Siobhan, and that's Siobhan Timmins. And she's done a social story learning about the coronavirus. It's very useful information for kids, because the information in social stories is informative, reassuring, and practical. It really helps with parents. Also, on YouTube, another famous name in autism, Peter Vermeulen, has got a video, an animation called Corona Autism Uncertainty. So please do check that out too. When you give the information, please be honest and age appropriate in the information that you give, and teach by example and demonstration of, I will be calm in this situation, I will not become overly distressed. Now, one of the things you can explain is risk categories, that children and adolescents are generally at less risk in the general population. But one of the difficulties is that the person with autism may be concerned about their favorite grandma or the older members of the family that could be of concern. Now, there's another factor. There's an autism medical factor. And that is, in autism, there can be a difficulty mentally perceiving low levels of illness, of discomfort. So they may not be reporting that they are showing the early signs. So please check body temperature for objective information, because the person may not be conscious of the low-level signs starting to develop. It's a part of the ability to pick up internal signals. And also explain that one day, not tomorrow, but the coronavirus will end, and it's just that we do not know exactly when. Now, that's a theme, but there are other things to be aware of. And explaining to the child the temporary changes in daily life and how to accommodate them. One of the difficulties is that those with autism have great difficulty coping with change. And this is not only a time of emotion, it's a time of change in routine, expectations, and so on. So there's changes in daily routine, not going to school. Seems like a holiday in a way, but you can't do what you like to do on holiday. You can't go to the cinema or a theme park or McDonald's. You're sort of marooned in your house, not seeing grandparents and family gatherings and outings, which can be very disappointing and confusing. But the person will benefit if they are based at home with a new timetable for the weekday. So they know the schedule of the day like they would in a classroom. And they know that at this particular time or after this particular event, what's happening now, next, and later is going to be important. But I would also add, it's not more free time for Minecraft. It is to be doing things. Oh, yippee! I can be on the computer all day. Well, if it's educational, great, but not necessarily all day recreational. And there is going to be the issue of conflict within the family from being cooped up in that close environment. So in a way, it's looking at conflict management is going to be important for the family. Now, some strategies. I do recommend exercise and yoga and meditation as ways of reducing the anxiety. Now, there are also going to be issues of continuing therapy. They may be having ABA, occupational therapy, psychology, and so on. So what I'm doing now is Skype sessions with the families and individuals that I see, using Skype or Zoom, if possible, to maintain the momentum of the programs. Now, for adults with autism, you're going to have to do something. When you have anxiety, you have a lot of energy, and you've got to use that energy constructively. Now, not shopping and hoarding toilet rolls and things like that. Don't know whether in America that occurs, but we've had a run on toilet rolls. Can't understand why, but never mind. And hoarding. Now, you can do useful things like decluttering the attic or basement, trying to get order out of chaos. If you feel, I can't sit here, I've got to do something. Well, rather than shop to excess, I would recommend tidying the house, spring cleaning, all the things that you need to do. And if you can, watch the news once a day. Try to avoid continuous 24-hour news, which only maintains the tension and anxiety.
Dr. Tony, you've assembled a list of information based on the conversation that we just had.
Okay, this became a prompt or a script for me, and it may well be that it's worthwhile obtaining a copy of this to pass on to relatives and explain the situation so that they will be consistent with the strategy. So anyone visiting the house will know what to do. Now, I want to close on an interesting variation that life is now more autism friendly. There's no touching or hugs on greeting and no crowds. It's wonderful for those with autism. I have a chance for solitude. And also, it's very important to close. Vaccines are being developed by scientists, many of whom have autism, and they will save lives. Okay, thank you.
I have to underscore the scientists.
Absolutely, they will. They'll go off on their own, and they will just be in solitude, thinking about it, and all of a sudden, in a flash of inspiration, will be the solution that nobody else has thought of. This is when we need people with autism, because they're going to solve outside-the-box problems.
A wonderful positive note to end this on. Thank you, Dr. Tony, for taking time to help us that are suffering from anxiety of the unknown.
Okay, thanks, Craig.
See you later.